So I believe we might have found what is arguably the worst travel horror story in all of 2023, as we have a family that booked the vacation of a lifetime with a cruise line, and well, now they are out just shy of $60,000. And the worst part about all of this is that it could have been easily avoided. I do hope you watch this entire video because this entire conundrum here does revolve around two stories totaling into a loss of about $72,000. I am going to go over these stories briefly. However, the bigger takeaway for this specific video is all of the life lessons that will be learned, and well, hopefully it'll give all of you a better experience as you will learn from the mistakes of these poor devils whenever you book your cruise in the future. So this ship-size issue began when a family of five known as the Thompsons decided they wanted to go on the vacation of a lifetime to the final frontier of Alaska. They decided they wanted to make one last vacation as a family together before three of the kids went off to college, as they wouldn't know when they were all going to actually get together and do something like this ever again, which is understandable. The Thompsons would contact Norwegian Cruise Line or NCL for their ultimate cruise experience, and they would be sailing to Alaska on board the Norwegian Jewel, paying $60,000 for a 3-room suite on board. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, I do cruise quite a bit, and I have seen some astronomical prices. I was just on board Norwegian Cruise Line's newest ship, the Norwegian Viva, and I met a man that was in the Haven, that's the suites area on board, that paid $33,000 for his Haven suite, which honestly wasn't really that large, but he said he enjoyed it, and he got a $23,000 discount. I also looked at the suite that this family was going to be occupying, and well, I would say it's not bad. And they also booked what's known as like a land and sea package. Norwegian Cruise Line is apparently one of the best, if not the best, at doing this over in Alaska. So I guess if you have the money, why not spend it? Not only was the cruise itself in a 5-day land adventure all booked through Norwegian Cruise Line, the flights were also booked for the Thompson family through Norwegian Cruise Line. And here's where the problem starts. They were living in Greensboro, North Carolina. They would go from Greensboro to over in Atlanta, where they would take a Delta flight straight over to Vancouver, where the Norwegian Jewel would be staying at. However, they would be flying the day of the cruise. Now, one thing you guys have to understand, this is one of the big takeaways, I see this all the time. You never, under any circumstance, in my personal opinion, fly the day of your cruise. I fly from Tampa, Florida, where I live, all the way down to Miami, all the time. It is very rare that even I myself, even though I could drive 3 to 4 hours over there that same day, I always just fly over there the day prior, just in case there's any inconveniences whatsoever. The reality is that things just go wrong, and I do believe that if you're talking about going to different time zones, or if you're talking about going to different continents, well, just don't be stupid. Fly in at least 24 to 48 hours prior to your cruise. Now, the Thompsons did feel a little off and taken back by this time schedule for them to fly all the way from Greensboro, from the East Coast to the West Coast over in Vancouver. They'd contact the Norwegian rep, and the rep would assure them that they would be fine. Their flight would start at about 4 to 5 a.m. local time over in Greensboro, allowing them plenty of time to get over to Vancouver. However, they would find out that that was not correct at all, as their flight from Greensboro going over to connect in their Delta flight in Atlanta would be canceled, and just like that, they'd have a giant conundrum. Unfortunately, there will be no other flight for the Thompsons to take their original route going over to Atlanta and then take a Delta flight up to Vancouver. However, Delta would try to help them out and get them on a flight out of Charlotte. So they would drive from Greensboro to Charlotte and then fly over to Seattle in hopes of trying to find another flight from Seattle over to Vancouver. However, it would be to no avail. They'd even try to contact an Uber, but the Uber drivers that they would contact didn't have a passport to go from Seattle, which is the United States, crossing over to Canada to get them to Vancouver in time for them to catch their cruise. By the way, do keep in mind that just like this flight from Greensboro over to Atlanta, this family's flight from Charlotte, North Carolina over to Seattle also had some problems, as there was a 1-hour delay, thus causing the issue with their flight being missed to hopefully get over to Vancouver in time. And then they had the issues with the Uber. Now, personally, I don't believe in bad juju or bad luck. However, this family was going through it. And by the way, there are a lot of details that I am leaving out of the story because I want to get to the life lessons here that you all need to know, as well as the other story. So if you guys want to see the full article, I think it's really good. Make sure you check it out. I'll leave it pinned in the comment section below. After a grueling 48 hours of missing their vacation, the Thompsons would then call back NCL and try to speak to a representative and tell them about the issue that they would be having. The representative would inform them that unfortunately they would be missing their cruise and they couldn't meet up with the ship anywhere else because of the maritime laws that are unfortunately at play in that type of situation. And well, they could, of course, catch the land package that they had, but they would also still be out of a lot of money. And by a lot, I do mean about $58,000, as they would only receive some of the port taxes and fees back in the amount of $2,000. Now, I don't think this is justified, but there were two reasons that led to the fact that the Thompsons didn't get paid their full amount that they had originally paid for their cruise. For starters, one, they did not buy travel insurance, which means that whatever loopholes and fine print that is on the initial documents that you sign for the cruise, well, Norwegian is going to go ahead and stick to that. It is just business. When it comes to Norwegian booking the flight for you as well, they are in control of everything. By that I mean they can make changes until about 72 hours or 2 days prior to your flight. Once that 72-hour window closes, it is all up to the airlines to figure all of it out. Should there be delays or anything, and Norwegian just kind of washes their hands with it and says, well, too bad, so sad. You didn't have insurance, well, now this is the conundrum that they're dealing with. Now, there was a similar situation on the opposite side of the spectrum that happened a couple months ago with a lady named Monica de Graaf. I'm getting it correctly. Her and her daughter were set to go on the Norwegian breakaway, and they were flying out of Toronto and meeting up in Rome. And, well, their flight would originally get them there the day of their cruise, which, once again, is extremely frowned upon. Because not only are we talking about time zones, we're talking about literally going across the Atlantic, and well, it's just not good. One delay would cause Monica and her daughter to miss their cruise, and unfortunately, they wouldn't be refunded for it either. The crazy part about this one is that they did have travel insurance. Monica stated that she allegedly paid $200 per person for the insurance policy, but the cruise as a whole cost them about $11,000. When the delay happened, thus canceling their cruise for them and turning into a giant mess and nightmare, they were only reimbursed $500. By the way, sorry, that is $500 each. However, $1,000 out of an $11,000 claim doesn't exactly make much of a difference. Now, let me give you my personal opinion here, my 2 cents into the matter. For starters, whether it is you, your travel agent, or the cruise line that is booking your cruise for you, do not ever, ever, ever let anybody or yourself book your flight the day of your cruise. There are so many anomalies and issues that could take place at literally any point in time. I did that a lot last year. I had to learn the hard way. I was in Orlando at one point, had a Frontier flight over to Miami. It got canceled. I had to drive, or take an Uber rather, all the way back home, get in my car and drive all the way to Miami, and I just missed my cruise. However, I cruise a lot and I was willing to take that risk. If you're willing to take that risk, by all means, it is on you 100%, but I do believe it is not advisable. Number two, cruising is meant to be a hassle-free form of travel. I would never bash or knock anybody for wanting to book a travel agent or going directly to the cruise line and have them just handle everything. However, work does need to be done. Everybody talks about this whole idea of hard work versus smart work. I think you need a little bit of both. You got to be smart. You put in the hard work, decide what it is that you want to do as far as your cruise experience, you want to resort or whatever. But after you have gotten those details, even after your travel agent has looked over it or the cruise line has looked over it, you should go over all of the fine print with a magnifying glass and make sure they cover everything under the sun that you could possibly think of. If you see that something is a little off, maybe they don't cover this or that, you should go ahead and reference back over to them and get some clarification. That way you know what happens should there be an emergency or a flight delay or even a cancellation. Finally, I do wonder if all of this is actually true. And by all of this, I do mean as far as, let's say, at the starting point with the representative that booked this family's flight for their $60,000 cruise for them to fly in the day of. I would assume that a representative directly with Norwegian Cruise Line would be knowledgeable enough to understand that flying in from literally the other side of the country to another one is probably ill-advised and shouldn't be done at all. I am, of course, talking about flying in the day of your cruise. However, when it comes to both of these scenarios, whether we're talking about insurance or without, it is going to be potentially problematic on the PR end for Norwegian Cruise Line. Whenever I did talk about this video, when it came to the woman and her daughter that was flying in from Toronto, I mentioned that it is going to be an issue. I do believe that, yes, there is a business side to this, but there is also, I guess, more of a social and reputation side for Norwegian Cruise Line. And with this particular couple here, this family rather, the Thompsons, $60,000, everybody's gonna be talking about this. And you gotta wonder if now families that do have that nice chunk of change, if they're going to go someplace else. Who knows? Maybe they end up going to Royal Caribbean. Maybe they end up going to MSC. The yacht club is pretty nice. Maybe they ditch the kids all together and decide that they're going to go as a couple on a Virgin cruise and take the Rockstar suite. Nevertheless, this is an extremely terrifying situation, regardless of how much money you have. And, well, obviously, now you have a mother and daughter, as well as a giant family that has now had their vacation ruined. And now, well, they got to figure a lot out. But, of course, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section below. As usual, know that I love and appreciate every single one of you. Hit that like button on your way out. I do apologize if my tone's kind of all over the place, and I'm all over the place. I've been a little sick for the last couple days with a really bad cough, headache, stuffy nose, and I'm doing what I can. And I'm doing all this traveling, getting ready to fly back to the United States. Anyway, I'm talking too much. I appreciate you guys. I'll see all of you later. Take it easy.